sort of frame, accelerate as much of this as you can, your acceleration is tied to is defined by being able to leverage other money from other orders of government. Fair?
That's correct.
Okay. The framework, though, wouldn't it? Sorry, it took me 4 minutes to get clear on that, but I'll have 8 or 9 rounds also. The carbon budget accounting framework, why can't we start to bake that in to educate us and give us real life experience about that? What is likely going to be reality for all governments down the road. So why can't we do that sooner?
The simple answer is this is very new. Very new. It's bleeding edge work. One city in the world is doing it right now. So their city and the administration has made progress in terms of developing the tools and manuals to be able to do this, but there's still more that we have to work out. We're good. We have a lot of experience as a city doing the macro level work around community and corporate GHGs, but it's translating that information down to the micro level at the project level. That's new work.
How much does our existing investment in LRT, the bus network redesign, the work that's being done by many of our corporate climate leaders as part of that program, the projected emission savings from implementation of the city plan, the zero waste policy, how much of all that is accounted for? Not today, because a lot of it's just starting, but as we project, that gets, are we able to account for that when we look at what that budget might look like?
The short answer is yes. That's part of the modeling that we do and the work that we've done in moving this forward.
Because it's almost like we're not doing anything when we talk about these, when we have these conversations, but we're doing a lot on the matter presently.
Absolutely. There's a lot underway, and the carbon accounting and budgeting, and Ms. Pearson might want to chime in here as well. 2021 is really about laying the groundwork of understanding as a municipality how to do that, and then really fully embedding that into our budgeting processes for council's decision making.
Okay, I see I've went over budget on mine. So.
It's okay. I'll we'll try to avoid overshoot in all things here. So I'll just pick up a little bit on that. I mean, I understand we can't do carbon budgeting for the fall supplemental that's coming out on Thursday for sure. But I take the point that we're already doing things anticipating achieving greenhouse gas reductions through strategic investments, not just in hard infrastructure like LRT to change mode shift, but also things like downtown district energy and other things that we presume will have good paybacks on the carbon side and have modeled to some degree. So again, it reads though like we would still be piloting in the next 4-year cycle from 23 to 26 for capital, and that would take us halfway to the 2030 goals, still piloting this methodology. So what do you need from us, or what kinds of support would we need from external consulting or the feds, or, dollars through GMF or something to help accelerate being able to have that lens for the prioritization discussion for the full budget cycle a couple of years from now?
Mr. Mayor, thank you for that feedback. I think in local government, we really like the word pilot when we're doing something different and new. And what I would suggest is really that the team was saying, this is new stuff, but Ms. Pearson and I are absolutely committed through 2021 to lay the groundwork for that next 4-year budget. And I would call it more that we're going to do it, and then we're going to learn, and we're going to refine as we go. It's not that we're not going to do it. It's not that we're piloting it. It's that we're learning and refining it as we go.
I think it's building the airplane as you fly a little bit, to stretch a metaphor, but if we can try it in 2021 and then do our very best, recognizing that it will continue to evolve and the standards around this are still evolving, we have an opportunity to influence that and to lead by example. So I'm really reassured to hear that. On the question of the other timeline question here, is I get that we may need more than December 31st of this year, but December 31st of next year seems a long way off, and this seems closer to done than that. So, and quite frankly, I think this council owes it to you and to the people who came to speak to this council previously to conclude this work. So I'll just say I'm not comfortable with December 31st of next year. When can this council have this done by, would be my question.
Our goal is to be back here in March, so it's really the process of getting it back to the provincial government, and it was just, we were never intending to take until the end of next year to do the work. I want to be clear about that. So if you want to put it as April, we could be comfortable with that as well.
Well, and I think it may come back here and it may iterate a bit. So as long as we're saying, kind of June 30th to send it to the province is the extension we need to, so that we've got Q2 and the spring supplemental to start to try some of these things. And that's helpful. And the reason why that timing's really good is I recognize that we're not in a position to move, and in the last 4-year budget, we moved considerable resources into this space for green power purchase, a variety of other incentives. The feds through FCM and GMF and the partners, the low carbon cities have moved a bunch of resources into this as well. So there's stuff happening. Again, we can accelerate that. I believe, based on intergovernmental conversations the big city mayors were having today, that there are going to be additional resources brought to bear by the federal government as part of an inclusive and green recovery that maybe in the fall economic statement, but certainly by the spring budget next year. So I think Q1 of next year, we'll have a much better sense of what the injection of partner resources from the orders of government that have liquidity will be. So then just to confirm with your timeline, if that information is coming back to spring supplemental, when we can look at how we would use those additional resources and whatever the business case would be on the premise that carbon avoidance for us is also cost avoidance, that all that can come together in Q1, Q2 of next year.
Our intention wasn't for spring supplemental, but if committee would like us to look at bringing that would mean that this would have to be back before committee in February, I believe.
Well, if the feds bring additional resources, I mean, I guess if it's new money, we don't need to amend the budget. If it's partner money, we can just fund a profile with partner money whenever we want. We don't need to modify the budget other than as a flow through. That's my premise. I think there will be support from senior orders of government to do this, who recognize that we're broke on the operating side and can't lead this.
Yeah, Ms. Pearson perhaps would be better to speak to this.
So, Mr. Mayor and Executive, yes, we've been in discussions with, we are aware of some of the funding that's coming federally, and it is ongoing discussions we have with the bank, with some others. We don't have a lot of line of sight. That's part of the reason we need into Q1 as to what exactly the terms of some of the funding's coming. If there's more funding, of course, we'd bring it forward so that Edmonton can take advantage of that. But to do the prioritization and make sure we can come back to council with a clear line of sight of what the support is, we do need the extra time.
Understood. I think my point is it's going to start moving fast here. So, but it sounds like we'll be ready for that, and I'm way out of time. So, Councillor McKean.
Thank you. I'm going to ask some awkward, maybe illegitimate questions, but I've long been curious about Yellowhead Trail expansion as a priority. And given what we've heard this week about the importance of transportation in this issue of energy transition, why is Yellowhead Trail still a priority to us? I don't know who wants to answer that.
I'll try, Councillor McKean. Goods movement in the city of Edmonton is still critical in terms of economic development. Long ago, council has identified Yellowhead as part of the inner ring road, and that's why it's a priority. In terms of implementation, it's also partner dollars, and anytime we have that opportunity, we have to take advantage of it.
Those
Good.
priorities, Mr. Laughlin, were set years and years and years ago. And I'm wondering if we have to go all in on the Yellowhead project, or there would be some capital dollar savings in reducing the scope of that project and using it on other transportation modes that would get us closer to our 1.5. Any thought?
That would mean revisiting the current agreements, and I'm not sure that our other funders would support such a move. If you'd like us to ask that question, we can, but that would be revisiting what has been a project that has been agreed to by council on the basis of funding support from other orders of government.
I would love to see how much we're investing in road expansion in this particular capital budget round and ask if that's truly a priority, given what we know about climate change and 1.5 and whether we've ever really dug into that question hard. I know it'd be divisive on council, but it would be interesting to ask the community. We get blowback, serious blowback for a few kilometers of bike lane, but I don't know, I'm just really struck by this, Mr. Laughlin, that I feel like we're fiddling while the earth is burning. And at some point, we're gonna have to make some major decisions on our values as we express them in our budget. And I've long wanted to ask that question. I've done it on the record, and I will remain unsatisfied with the answers, but I understand them, Mr. Laughlin, obviously not your fault. Thank you very much.
I just would add, in addition to that investment, and to echo comments that have been made previously, this council is making significant investments in the effort to address climate change. Once it's in the ground, you're going to be building 27 kilometers of an LRT system for alternate transportation, which does equate to 6 lanes of traffic. That itself puts a significant dent in GHG. We're also investing.
Grievances that have been raised around that particular issue have been way out of proportion. Nobody raises Yellowhead Trail, which I think is $1 billion project, as an issue, but West LRT becomes so controversial. Sorry, I'm venting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKean. Councillor Henderson?
Yeah, a whole bunch of questions. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to run soon, so I may not get them all in. Can I just really quickly do a double check on that active transportation money, which is a 10% carve-out that was announced by Minister McKenna, I think a month or so ago, or 2 months ago, whether or not we're following that up? Because my understanding is those projects have to be started by the 31st of next September. It's 10% of the emergency infrastructure money, I think, the ISIP funding, and whether or not we've done any follow-up on that.
Yes, we have, and Ms. Pearson can speak to it.
Yes, Councillor, we are actually actively talking to the province about that, but that is, because it's the ISIP money, it is a provincial priority that comes into play, so we are still working with that. We are still pursuing, though, the announcements also in this space with the Canada Infrastructure Bank and others to get all funding sources.
Yeah, great, thanks. I was pretty sure we were, but I hadn't heard anything. And it's, it is a carve-out that if we don't apply for it, it's not gonna, we won't get our piece of it. And we're doing a lot of that work, and it answers some of the stuff that we have in here. I'm understanding we were sitting here a year ago saying that we had 8 years before we blew through the budget with business as usual. And understanding business as usual is our current energy transition plan. There's a time thing that is really worrying me here right now about the fact that we could be 2 or 3 years before, and I think what was really wonderful about the report is it also tied into an urgency around our economic redevelopment and reimagine, and I would argue there's a poverty piece of this that is a third piece that we can deal with the same piece of money. So I'm just wondering how that lens is going to be. If we're waiting to 2021 to put that lens on things, we lose another 1.5 years, if not more. And I think and it also ties into a question about making sure we have short-term measurement and some short-term goals, because otherwise, again, we'll be sitting here in 24, 25, 26, doing what we always do and going, oops, we missed our targets. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to speed that piece of the puzzle up.
The targets will come in the March report.
Great, okay, good. Targets will come and the measurement tools as well, because that's the other, I think, really key piece about the carbon budget piece, is it gives us a powerful measurement tool to keep us honest, which we've always fudged, right? And measurement is such an important part of all of this.
I just want to be clear, though, the carbon budget work will be laying the groundwork through 2021. You won't see that fully implemented until the next budget cycle. You will start to see parts of it in the fall SCBA next year.
In the meantime, though, if we're not, and I think, again, I shared the mayor's worry that if we're talking 2 budget cycles out, it's all over. So it's good to hear that we'll be able to use it more meaningful in the next budget round. But in the meantime, we need something else to stand in for that. Because if we know that we have to move that, we have the next 3 years, we've got to start moving that line in a different direction, or we've lost another 3 critical years. If we don't have carbon budget, will we have another way to track if we're moving that line down closer to where we need it to be to get to 1.5?
I would say yes, we are. That's why we've got the actions that we currently have underway. We have a number of things that are underway, and we're not suggesting stopping any of those.
No, my question is, do we have a way of measuring it and seeing if we're actually making progress? Because I don't want to be sitting out here 5 years from now going, we missed.
We do have a Connect Edmonton indicator around corporate community greenhouse gas emissions. There's also additional indicators or targets in city plan. So yes, we will continue monitoring community and corporate greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, because I just think it's important, and I'm guessing we'll get this back in March, that the carbon budget is the most powerful tool, but that's about decision making. What we need to know is if we're actually changing the trajectory, and we can't wait. We're going to need, that needs to be monitored, and when we set targets, we're going to have to be able to measure that. So that we'll get in March.
Yes,
Great.
as well as the idea behind the implementation approach, the gated implementation approach,
Great.
is that there will be metrics and thresholds and indicators that we need to monitor to understand where the market is and where we may need to accelerate or change in action.
The one other thing that I showed in that jumped out in goal O, I think, in the appendix, which I'm curious about because we asked for it a while ago, and it sort of ties into the carbon budget piece, but it was the ability to harvest the operational savings from tightening building envelopes, doing all those kind of, and use that as a source of revenue in order to be able to do some of this work. And I'm just wondering where I see it's in here, but it was something we'd asked for 2 or 3 years ago, that we began to capture the positive operating impacts of some of our capital investments, and where we're at on that piece of work. Sort of pace for cities. Yeah, sorry.
It's Mary Pearson. I can answer some, and I'm sure Ms. McCabe can follow up. We are starting to track that. We are starting to flag where we are actually putting in more efficient buildings. You'll see some of the harvesting coming actually in the fall SOBA. You'll start to around that. The other thing we are, when talking to the Infrastructure Bank and others, that's some of their model as well. So we are still exploring that cautiously. And so we are pursuing, but you will start to see some of the savings be realized now.
Great, thank you very much.
Well,
I'll have to
small step, but
Oh, yeah.
there.
I'll have to, hopefully I'll be able to be here for one more round.
Thank you. On the second round, Councillor Cartmel.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to defer to Councillor Henderson if he's got to get some questions in and have place to go. It's fine by me, fine by others.
Benny's questions are always illuminating, so.
I only really had one more.
Go ahead.
And it's sort of been asked, but when we're, this question of when we're talking about regulation, particularly around building, it seems to me that what we got unanimity on was something that is more performance-based than specific. So is that part of what we can take into further conversations? Because I think some of this is a confusion about what we're asking for in terms of codes, and I actually think we're all more on the same page than we think we are. I'm not sure net zero ready is quite the objective, because I think it has other kind of implications, but is that part of the discussion that we can keep on pushing forward to maybe have a place where everybody can be on the same page in March?
We'll continue having those conversations with industry. I'm not sure that we will get all of industry on the same page for March.
I'm not sure we have to get all of them on the same page, but I think they're closer. I think the real fear is about something really prescriptive, and I get that, because I'm not sure that's particularly productive. But when you look at the kind of STEPCO model and things like that, I think it's less frightening to people, and I'm just wondering, I wouldn't mind some more definition thinking about that, and we may not get everybody on board, but I think a lot of the fear is because there's a lack of clarity about what we talk about in terms of regulation. We heard it described so many different ways yesterday that I think there is something in clarifying it's around performance that may make it easier to get more people on board. And I'm wondering if we can follow up on that.
Potentially, we will definitely follow up with that and have further conversations with the building industry for the March report. And quite frankly, we're going to have to continue having these conversations going forward.
Yeah,
It's not a done deal.
Right across the
in
country,
March,
it's not
yes.
just here.
Yeah.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go, that's very generous of you, Councillor Carmel. We'll loop back to you now.
Thank you. So I guess to start with, I have a bit of a similar question, but I want to dive in a little bit on the carbon budget perspective. So in the report provided, somewhere in the reports provided, it speaks to the analogy of the carbon budget to a financial budget, revenues, expenses, that kind of a thing. And we heard conversation yesterday around embedded carbon, and to me that almost sounded like the life cycle cost of construction. It's not just what's apparent on an operating sheet or a balance sheet, but it's all of the costs getting there. Do we have a model or do we actually measure carbon in that way? Like, can we discreetly identify with real accuracy what carbon consumption a particular building experiences?
So there are different greenhouse gas protocols and quantification processes for different types of actions. That's one of the things we're exploring right now. Which of these protocols could we use? We do not currently account for embodied carbon in our projects. That's more complicated analysis.
Councillor Cartmel, the carbon accounting that we'll bring forward and laying the groundwork in 2021, it's going to be first steps. As Ms. Tamaris referenced earlier, this is early work. This is not being done in a lot of other cities, so we are going to put our best people together to figure out exactly how to do that. But the idea is that there's a ceiling on carbon. We'll find out a way to be able to figure that out within the capital budget about which projects have more and which have reduced the carbon. And then at the end of the day, when you bring the whole portfolio together, are we meeting that ceiling or are we not?
Yeah. So okay. Thank you for that. I think embedded carbon is ultimately be a big piece of that, and maybe we're not quite there yet. That makes sense to me.
It'll be a component, but it most likely won't be a big component on the first go around of the carbon accounting.
Fair enough, and it's a bit of an order of magnitude conversation to start with, maybe before we get down to the last 5%. So I completely understand and accept that. From the perspective of energy efficiency, and I think this is the fundamentals of the PACE program, or what was formerly known as the PACE program, is that if you make the investment towards energy efficiency, that pays back over time with your utility costs. If a building makes those investments, does the city reap any benefit? So for instance, if building A becomes more energy efficient and their operating bills go down, does the city realize any correlating benefit from that? And in the alternative, does it cost the city more? So for instance, if we have a real grid challenge, if we have a fundamental movement towards 100% electricity for heating, for instance, that's an investment the city's going to have to make, not necessarily a benefit to its financial bottom line.
Councillor Cartmel, the short answer to both those questions is no, it doesn't impact the city's bottom line and or impact the city in terms of the benefit associated with it. But the city
as a-
overall, Edmonton overall, there's many benefits overall for Edmonton in terms of Edmontonians' prosperity, in terms of the economic development opportunities. So, but the city government doesn't see those benefits.
financially.
Financially, correct. There's many other benefits that are many other benefits, but not financially.
So I wonder about that, and maybe we can examine that a little further from this perspective. It's my personal view that regulation is a pushing sort of approach, and when we push something, we don't necessarily know where it goes. So, for instance, in the very simplest of examples, if we pile on regulation, we could see migration of development to the satellite communities. But if we pull something, then we kind of know what we're getting for it. So is there a way to tie a carbon budget, an energy efficiency investment that has got a carbon budget calculation to it, to some sort of a property tax relief or property tax benefit or incentive value, to tie the two things together so that we pull people and building owners to the places we want them to go?
Councillor Cartmel, Ms. Pearson, I'm sure will have something to say about this, but at this point, we're not exploring that, but we have to explore many tools as we go forward. Ms. Pearson?
Yes, it's just what Ms. McCabe said. I mean, it's an option. We'd have to evaluate it, though, as to whether it's the most effective option for pushing people where we want to go. And so it would warrant further investigation before we go there.
And maybe I can add a little bit in that, in general, what we are looking for is incentive, on the incentive side of the action plan here, is to really look at a number of opportunities. And a lot of times we think incentives are dollars, and in many cases it may be a combination of a number of things here. So we do have that open in our discussion and looking at all opportunities on this side.
Thank you. Councillor Walters.
So just in terms of the carbon, the accounting framework, someone said yesterday that municipalities are the heroes, but I feel some days like we act like we're the heroes, but we have plastic swords. We don't have a lot of really strong tools. And so we could use the carbon budget as a significant tool, but you noted, Ms. Tamaris, that there's one other city doing it. Are any provincial or federal governments? There's the federal government, which has, made a bigger point about climate policy than the provincial one has, for example. But are either of them considering any kind of carbon budgeting in their approach to climate?
A recent throne speech from the federal government talked about increasing their targets, their ambition for their 2030 target, and then legalizing 2050 to be emission neutral. So putting that in regulation. So it's different than a carbon budget, but it's in the same as that the targets are.
Yeah, so they have targets, but the budget is one step further in terms of understanding what we can and can't afford to do based on the input of emissions.
Yes.
Right? So how much of a risk is it, and this is a bit of a devil's advocate question to our trajectory here, but how much of a risk is it for us to go really far down that road? Because the carbon budget, does, I think, part of the intent is it's like an eyes wide open. Like if we don't keep within this number of emissions over this period of time, we're screwed. So if we're taking all that pressure onto ourselves with the least capacity of any order of government to respond, what does that do? Other than scares everyone's pants off.
Councillor Walters, I do think that is part of the risk, because when you look at the challenges before us as a society in this file, it's going to take all orders of government in order to achieve the targets set before us. But I think that's part of the reason for using 2021 to lay that groundwork and to be thoughtful about the approach and to really use it as a learning approach.
But I guess in a perfect world, forget all the politics. If we said, here's the amount of carbon we have left to put into the atmosphere, and here's the federal government's responsibility, budgeted amount, here's the provincial government's budgeted amount, and here's the city's. that would give us the best picture of where we should and shouldn't make investments. But we don't have that, so you don't have to answer that question, but that's a point worth noting. One of the, so Councillor Cartmel talked a little bit about the community investment energy program. So I'm going to ask about that on the non-res side, but where are we with the residential program? So Energy Efficiency Alberta is kaput. They're not administering the program. We're trying to patch together some base of it. So what's the update?
Yeah, so in the, I think it's attachment 3 of the report, we do talk about a HERA program, our Home Energy Retrofit Accelerator Program, and we're very close to launching that program. Again, it was sort of redesigned with the provincial drop-off of the program. We had to redesign that program, so we are close to bringing that to market.
But it's essentially PACE.
Sorry, this is specifically on the rebate side of things.
No, I was asking about the new
PACE or
version
CIP
of
program.
PACE.
We are waiting for confirmation on some funding from FCM, an application we put in there for the base money there, and as soon as we get that conversation or confirmation, we would bring a bylaw forward and have that, and hopefully we'll have something in early to mid 2021 in market.
Okay, so because we know about the emissions value, emissions deductions or value of retrofits. So beyond PACE, are we considering any, on the commercial side, can we do something similar for non-residential? So within our Corporate Climate Leaders Program, which we don't talk about that much, but we should, BOMA is a big part of that, and it would be, I think, worthwhile exploring that. So what's it take for us to explore that?
The model that we're putting out or suggesting would have a commercial component to this too.
Okay, that's great. And then on the sort of building non-residential retrofit as it relates to energy poverty as one of the goals of a just transition that, meets emissions reduction and a just transition. What can we do more than we're doing today, knowing that it involves a lot of partnerships to convene some of those partners? And I appreciate all the tension we're going to have about reimagine and our capacity, but as we prioritize this in Connect Edmonton, what can we do to convene partners to really advance greater retrofits, particularly over the older housing stock in many of our mature neighborhoods close to the core?
One of the guiding principles in the strategy is collaboration. And we do think it is an important element that has to be integrated into every action of the strategy and action plan. The city has been working with industry to develop the emission neutral building pathway. That work will continue past the strategy development and into implementation. And they're exploring ideas like the ZEBEX also right now. Right. So work is underway. It won't stop. There is a lot to do.
And we've also looked at working with Empower Me, and we're looking at a poverty pilot as well, and we're working on a grant application for that.
Okay, thanks.
That's great, and I was going to ask about Mr. McNichol's offer, and I think there is tremendous high-performing building or green building expertise here, both on the residential side and commercial institutional side. So I think, doubling down on that in the frame of what is the economic opportunity, what is the upside, what's the relevance for our industries going forward, making this transition, is both on the retrofit side and the corporate climate partners is a good example of that, but also on the new build side. Where's the conversation at with industry about seeing the city as a center of excellence, seeing it as an economic driver for us? I thought Mr. McNichol's offer to bring resources to bear was really exciting, actually. So how quickly can we capitalize on that with them?
I've been meeting with Mr. Nicol over the last few weeks, and I think there's absolutely an opportunity there, and we're going to continue to explore it. I think, and there's a lot of other people in industry who are also excited about it. So I think there's a real opportunity there.
Then the other sort of related piece that Mr. Park and a few others spoke to is that increasingly it sounds like investors and finance are going to be betting on high ESG, betting on willingness and not just will, but performance on implementation of these goals. So do we have a sense from an economic development point of view of how critical being a leader in this, or at least being even just with the pack on this, is going to be from an investment and talent attraction standpoint?
This is going to be very important. This is the new era of economic growth, and really I think the role for the city is in order to enable it and work to increase the capacity within our city. And really the businesses who figure this out are going to be able to really prosper into the future.
So then part of the package on that is incentives, and we've got certain programs around incentives that are financial to help accelerate and reward behavior that advances these goals and creates market capacity and supports market transformation. But incentives, cash incentives, are expensive, and resources are getting scarcer for us in the pandemic. So to my mind, that leaves us having to look at the regulatory toolkit very, very thoughtfully. And I think we heard will to look at sort of outcome or performance-based regulatory approaches. It says, there may be 8 different ways to get to net zero for a house, for example. And we want to encourage all of them rather than say you have to follow this one pathway. But that still will mean pursuing some nudging and some moving of the floor up for those who are slow to adapt to the imperatives that we're trying to meet with here. So, but what does that look like in a regional context? As we've heard that, the feds move codes, province does certain things, and then in our regional context where there's sort of mobile capital and borderless kind of environment, what kind of conversations have we had with our neighbors about harmonizing building efficiency expectations? Because they've presumably got to submit something to the province too, similar to what we do. So they must be thinking asking themselves some of the same questions about regulation.
There's absolutely an opportunity for us to work with the region on this and see if there is an opportunity to harmonize whatever regional ask we want to put out there to the industry. But I think you're right to be thoughtful about which regulations. And I also think on the permit side is where can we get out of the way? Perhaps we have some barriers to permitting if somebody's looking at something that's innovative that we need to continue to explore.
Well, yeah, I think putting how do we achieve our lower carbon future lens on the red tape work that continues makes a lot of sense too. And then doing it in a regional context so that we can attract talent and capital to Edmonton Metro. I think there's increasing will from the mayors to look at that question in a regional context. And I'm going to take that back into the next sort of strategic planning conversation we're having later this week even, because I think there's a gap there, and I think there's a moment of opportunity there. So, but that'll need some technical support. So, I wanted to ask about. Actually, no, those are all of my questions, I think. So I'll stop there and go next to Councillor Cartmel is on the third, and Councillor Walters is on the third. So, Tim, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple more. I just want to circle back to Councillor McKean's question for a moment. Is there anything about that we're aware of right now about those funding agreements that prevents a transit dedicated lane or a transit and high occupancy vehicle dedicated lane? Do we know that?
Specifically on Yellowhead, Councillor Cartmel?
Yeah, on Yellowhead, yeah.
I don't know, we'd have to check the agreements, but I don't believe there's a contemplation because the use of that corridor is goods movement. So we'd have to check. I do know our folks, when they're designing, doing the planning and design, they do consider those elements as they're designing, but I'm not sure if it would be as prescriptive as that. And if Mr. Maliefs is on the call here, he may be able to provide more insight into that.
We hadn't considered the use of transit lanes as part of the original business case that was submitted as part of the Building Canada Fund application. So it
Okay.
doesn't necessarily prevent us from considering that in the future, as Mr. Laughlin has pointed out, but it certainly wasn't part of the contemplation in terms of the application to the Building Canada Fund.
Okay, and then in a similar vein, there was and tell me if this is the wrong place to ask this question, both you, Mr. Laughlin, or Mr. Malitsta, is the contemplation of derating the Duggan Bridge to some degree and using it partly for reducing the vehicle traffic and using part of that for bicycle traffic. Do you know, just at a very high level, if it's that simple or if that bridge requires rehabilitation from a different perspective?
It needs, sorry, it's Mr. Maliefsta. It needs rehabilitation from the perspective of its current condition. So that's really what's driving the need for having to replace it. Sorry.
Sorry, we'll,
Sorry, so it's current condition that's really driving the need for replacement. And by replacing it, it brings about the opportunity to look at things like enhancing the pedestrian accommodation on the bridge. So we are looking at expanding the sidewalk as part of that. It certainly isn't as easy as suggesting that you could just half the cost. The substructure is essentially a fixed cost. A large part of the vehicle accommodation on the surface in terms of what makes up the carriageway or the width of the bridge is largely fixed or constrained for other reasons. So it's not simply as extracting one lane and cutting the costs in half.
I think that there was a past project where we rehabilitated the high-level bridge, but we derated it to some degree so that it no longer takes freight trains. And that mitigated some of the rehabilitation cost. That's not the same case here. We need to fix the bridge.
The other thing that we're working against too is our building codes for bridges also evolve, and things like the fatigue analysis of a structural bridge, the number of cycles that it experiences in terms of volume of traffic or bridges. So the structural loading is made up of more than just it's a function of the loading of a train or cars or LRT or whatever it is, but it's also the cycles, that the number of times that it's crossed that impacts it as well.
And this bridge has reached its limit and needs to be fixed.
Exactly.
Yep. Thank you. Those are all my questions. Thanks everyone for some really cool work. Really appreciate it.
thank you. Councillor Walters?
So just one more. Do we have, the budget, sort of carbon budget accounting framework, that will, of course, be a straight line from investment to emissions reduction. So that's what helps us measure our targets. Additional analysis, when I think about, and I have some experience with this in a past life, is the number of jobs created in retrofitting. There's all kinds of opportunities for cross-training within various trades, energy auditors, the solar installers, insulation folks. Like there's tremendous amount of job creation, far more than, to Councillor McKean's point earlier, than you get with road building. When you think about the number of homes requiring retrofits in a city our size, do we have, or can we get our hands on the analysis that talks about the jobs in that space?
The short answer is yes, and we've done a fair bit of that analysis, and there's sort of two parts to that, in that our investment, if it's a grant or an incentive, how does that leverage an investment by a third party, whether it be a homeowner or a business owner? What does that translate into actual retrofit or solar panels and that type of thing?
Right. Well, if it's a multi-government incentive structure that is part of a large press on retrofits that engages all those various trades that I listed.
Yeah, correct. And
The
there
number
are
of
job
jobs is
numbers.
substantial, and
Yeah.
we just have to quantify that and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. So I guess my question is, can we continually include that in our reporting to council and to the public as we go along here?
We can, Councillor Walters, and you will note that this, this report that came forward and the attachments that have come forward have much more of an economic development lens put on them, because we know that this is a really important area for economic development into the future. And so as we work on our economic development strategy and as we work on our reports that we're bringing forward to council, that is really good feedback for us to make sure that we're very thoughtful about jobs created through the work that we're doing.
Well, and just to say, in the form of some kind of question, that this is, no one's ever going to be able to do this fast enough. So as we sit up here and grill you, we recognize the value of your work and the commitment that this team already puts toward this. And I think it's just continually fine-tuning this as we recognize our limits and what we need to do to continue to engage those other orders of government. So I'll speak more to that when I close on whatever we decide to do today.
I know that wasn't a question, but thank you for the feedback. I know the team has done really fantastic work and they're very committed to.
And this is in fact my last question, which reminded me of the question about the right mix. And I think it really is a question of the right mix of incentives versus regulation. There's regulation in this space, at a minimum. The outcome of that regulation is what matters. So does that regulation lead to emissions reduction? If it doesn't, well, then it shouldn't be there, probably, unless it's a safety regulation or an occupational health and safety regulation. Just like an incentive shouldn't be there if it doesn't lead directly to emissions reduction. So I don't know that, and that space is changing all the time. It's very dynamic. So with our advisory committee, Shufraz and Chelsea were here yesterday. Is there some opportunity for you and, Mr. Brunch and Ms. Tamaris, along with them, to do some bit of white papering or thinking about what is the right mix of those things now? Because I don't recall seeing anything contemporary on that as we battle that tension. Is that a reasonable thing? A reasonable request?
The short answer is no, it's not unreasonable request, and we will do it, yes.
Okay.
I'll answer that in a backward way. And I do note that the mix of regulation and incentive, in any given initiative or area, it's a continuum as opposed to saying it's
right.
the mixture, but I get what you're saying, and there's capacity building in there is an important piece. We can't regulate if we don't have the capacity to actually.
That's right. Well, and that's why I think the request from CHBA and others in the space is, they're the ones who are required to build. They're the builders, and it will be people in the trades and who have small, little startup, clean tech, retrofit companies. Those are the people we need to have at the table, because they're the ones who are going to have to do it. Our success actually relies on industry to a large degree.
Yeah,
right?
Councillor Walters, we have to have all of those people at the industry or at the table, because you're right, the success of the industry is dependent on exactly that, and finding out what the right level of regulation will be key. So I would say not just the Energy Transition Advisory Committee, but we need to go engage with CHBA and members of CHBA who have expertise in this area as well.
Good. Thanks.
So we need to get a motion on the floor. We've heard that we could work with June 30 as the request to the province and fit everything that we want to try to do between now and then into that timeline. So do clerks have that ready? Someone want to move that?
I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor Walters. Folks wishing to speak to it?
I will.
We might need to go over a little bit. So I'll give you the last word, Councillor, if you want, or you can introduce it. It's up to you.
I'll speak to it.
Okay.
I'll close.
Others wishing to speak? Okay, I'll just hop on quickly. I think, firstly, I want to thank members of the public who came to present yesterday, many of whom have been engaged in this work for years or decades in a few cases. Some really valued partners from the city, from industry, from research, and from just private citizens who've been passionate about this issue for a long time. And, I also want to thank city administration for their continued efforts and the hurry up. I think we knew that a little bit of this work was going to be impacted by the pandemic, but the continued focus on this and understanding that how we recover from the pandemic is also going to either advance or delay our important work on climate change and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But it's more than that. This is also, you know, as people are increasingly recognizing, Mark Carney was invoked yesterday, this is what the investors of the world are increasingly asking themselves about where to deploy capital in the world. So as we look to bring jobs and investment to the city and the region and the province and the country, our efforts on this are critical from an investment attraction point of view. And likewise, I remember session that the Edmonton Public Library hosted back in January, which seems like a long time ago, with a couple of our youth councillors who were just brilliant in describing how the city's performance on this file and leadership on this file is a contributing factor in their thinking about where they want to be, where they want to build their careers, where they want to build their lives, where they want to raise their families. So this is also, in addition to an ethical test for investors, this is an ethical test for talent. And the world is tilting in this direction, and competition, frankly, is heating up. And so our longstanding preparatory work for this, though we're not as far along as we'd like on implementation ever, because trying to do that with 8 cents of the tax dollar when you're tackling a global challenge is a problem. But and a barrier to the kind of success that we need. But working in concert with other cities at the national scale through FCM and the Green Municipal Fund, and with the federal government that seems poised to inject more resources to support job creation as part of recovery, but also help us achieve these GHG reduction goals, I'm really optimistic that that coalition of local governments once again is going to be critical to accelerating this work. But we can't do this without industry partnership, and I was so heartened to hear construction industry, home builder industry, development industry folks come forward, and with trepidation you'd expect about what is this actually going to look like and how is it going to affect their business, to the last agreement that these outcomes are imperative and need to be achieved, and are questions of not only of justice but also of economic opportunity. And we see real innovation, particularly among our builders, to want to achieve those goals and move what is today reality with net zero homes from the boutique through to the mainstream. And also we heard phenomenal opportunity to put people to work retrofitting not just public buildings but private buildings to meet these goals and create jobs and bring people's energy costs down while reducing the GHG emissions that are a problem for our planet. And so cities will be part of the solution here. I trust the provincial government will grant us the little bit of extra time to do this on account of everything else that's happening in the world, and our offer will continue to be to help them achieve their goals by working with local governments. And I think one of the most important opportunities now is to make sure that we're doing this work, particularly any incentive and regulatory work, in a consistent and as little burdensome as possible and as enabling as possible, but consistent way with our neighbors in the region. And like so much of our other work, if it isn't undertaken in a metropolitan context, it will achieve limited success. But I think more and more of our neighbors understand those investor imperatives and have been listening to what the investment community has been saying, listening to the province's response to investors as well, and hearing it from their own talent in their own communities, their own administration and experts, their own councils, and their own kids who are demanding action on this from an intergenerational equity point of view. And so I remain quite optimistic that this is the next great economic opportunity and that Edmonton should have a role to play in this important work, and that taxpayers should be better off when we're done. Homeowners and ratepayers should be better off when we're done with lower energy costs, and a ton of jobs can be created, and that we can be part of the solution here. So I'll stop there and go to Councillor Walters to close if there's nobody else. Councillor Walters.
Thank you. And, you know, I said this a little bit earlier, but we have to remind ourselves that every time we talk about climate, we're not starting from scratch with the report that's in front of us. I can think about in the last 8 years, the new Edmonton Metro Regional Plan is a plan that enables a better climate, a future for climate. The Agricultural Master Plan, which is, hopefully getting close to done, makes a significant contribution. Our city plan, our significant investment in LRT, the bus network redesign, our work on regional transit, the bike network that we have today versus the one we didn't have 8 years ago, what EPCOR's done with the Stormwater Integrated Resource Plan, the work we've done around reshaping our waste strategy to a zero waste goal, the downtown district energy system, our tireless advocacy for PACE, and the work we still need to continue to do, all the work we've done and you've done with corporate climate leaders and Climate Smart to help these major businesses, cement companies, downtown office towers, malls, major institutions like the university and McEwen really achieve major energy efficiency in their buildings and in their properties. The work with industry on energy labeling of new homes, the existing solar incentives, the sustainable building policies, research and investment in technology we've made to help us use energy more wisely. Like all this stuff is a testament to the work that your shop has been doing along with council. So that's a ton of stuff that we should hang our hat on right now as climate leaders in this country. So we don't have to, I think we should all be freaked out about climate change, but some moments we can take a breath and realize that everybody's working really hard and we are making some good progress. And so when our inbox fills up with do more, do more, do more, we do need to take that seriously, but we also need to communicate back everything that this city has already done under the leadership of our mayor and this council and with your day-to-day very hard and intelligent work. So I think that needs to be said. The other thing that worries me, though, is we have to remember to keep ourselves humble in that we are a municipality with few tools. And I don't want to complain about that, but it's frankly the truth. We get the heck beat out of us on policing when ultimately we can try and do the right thing on policing, but we can be overridden. We can try to do the right thing on housing, but we're on our hands and knees all the time begging others to help us. And it's similar to this, is that we can do as much as we can, and we should do as much as we can, but we need to recognize that we have limits and that our public needs to find a way to be as passionate in their advocacy to the provincial and federal governments as they are to us. And it's great that we provide open forums for our public to come, and that was a great set of presentations yesterday. We're blessed by that kind of public participation. It helps us do better. And it can't just be us, though, that's staring down the barrel of this serious problem. But where we can do more, we should always do more, because we're going to have to be accountable to our kids and grandkids down the road when they say, oh, you were in office at the time that this could have really made a difference. So my belief is that we should do everything that we can do that does achieve actual emissions reductions, and that's why the carbon budget is, I think, really the most powerful tool that we have to make sure that we are on track. So as fast as we can get that into operation, we gotta make that happen. So I think this is a tremendous opportunity for our economy, for our industry, all the players in the industry space, because they will be the ones that actually implement most of it. And so I'll leave it there, and thank you for your work. Thanks.
Thank you. Please vote on the recommendation.
eScribe just locked me out, so I'm a yes.
We have all the votes.
Display the vote, please. That's carried. Now we've still got 617 and 618, and we've got speakers on those as well. So I'm going to suggest we take the 15 minutes now I may be a bit late coming back, because I've got to do a follow-up thing related to the big city mayor stuff from this morning at 4. So I may have to pop in and out of part of the next phase of the meeting. And so I might hand the chair to Councillor Walters, since he's in the room, to carry that on if I'm not able to be back. So I'm going to suggest we try to come back at maybe 3:55 and carry on with the speakers at that time. And I'll rejoin you as quick as I can. So, all right, we're in recess now. Thanks.